On today's episode, we talk about current Packers rumors and offseason chatter from rival teams and the Packers brass.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm cash.
Welcome in another episode of Sounds Gouda. Thank you, everybody, for coming back and taking a listen to us. Of course, and as always, my name is Rob Ralph. Next to me is my best friend, Jordan Olson. Thank you to any new and returning listeners. We are excited, as always, to be talking Packers football with you again and every week. Just know that we do have new content every Wednesday, Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And also know, too, that we're trying to do some new things here, but every new 50 subscribers we get on YouTube that is public, because we got to know who you are to be able to send you stuff. We will be giving away some free Sounds Good swag. Jordan, you can see, is donning the epic Sounds Good hat. We also have some other stuff that we're thinking about doing. So that next tier will be at number 600. So thank you to anybody that has been doing that so far. I've seen at least a few public subscribers come through, and anything you guys do definitely helps us. So, Jordan, as always, I feel like the off-season chatter and cycle goes around and around and around, specifically from, I don't know, Chicago Bears players, fans, etc. But Caleb Williams is coming out hot, saying that Packers fans suck. Jordan, is this just normal Bears offseason cycle chatter, or is he really trying to dig deep into Packers fandom?
Oh, well, it's probably a little bit of column A, column B, but, I'm all for it. Go ahead and let Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams talk smack because, I think the fact that the Packers are going to be viewed, you know, not as a favorite to win the division, not as a favorite to win the Super Bowl. Have a lot of questions to answer. I know they got a sour taste in their mouth from, the divisional games last year, particularly the way that last Bears game ended, literally let that one slip through our fingers there. I don't know. My question here is why? Like, why stir things up that much? I mean, you must be pretty confident that, the Bears have, turned a new page, but like, why in this day and age does any opposing player feel like, they should get a chance to just dunk on a team and their fan base after they've lost in the opposing stadium, get a chance to do the Lambeau leap? Like, frankly, that matter, like, why does any player feel like they should come into Lambeau and be entitled to do the Lambeau leap? I mean, it's been something sacred for Packers fans and players for years and a tradition that belongs to us. Like, why would any player think that that would be something that they could partake in? A visiting player, I don't know. The logic doesn't make sense to me. They were just getting a little soft and thinking that, I should be entitled to, every cool tradition in the NFL because I'm a, former number one pick. I don't know. What do you think make of this whole thing, Rob?
I should bring up Caleb's tweet from more than a few years back when he was rooting for the Packers, So it's it's noise. It's just something to get people riled up. And I feel like any sort of big traditions like that, you got some of your bigger rivals that come in, they like to dunk on your traditions and the stuff that you like to do. To me, it's literally in one ear and out the other. Really, the Bears have to go out and prove it. Every year they do this type of stuff, and every year they don't make the playoffs or go anywhere. So, if they could I'll give them a lot more credit. They can definitely do it, but they got to actually do something in their season that makes, progress for once.
Yeah, as Ted Lasso would say, it's all poopy. Just if you've seen Ted Lasso, seen that episode where he takes his team down into the sewer after everybody, all of the pundits, as they would call them in England, finished their team, AFC Richmond, to finish last. Every single one of them, he took them down there and told them to ignore the noise. So good watch. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso, I'd give it a watch. But enough about that. Let's talk about a little bit of Packers brass chatter that I think has gotten the fan base a little fired up too, So, we're starting to hear from Ed Policy, really excited to get him in as the incoming president. He's obviously had glowing things to say about Mark Murphy. This is a I think he said a Shangri-La situation for him. Obviously, his dad, Carmen Policy, being a longtime exec for the Finners and all the success there, he gets a chance to do that with the Packers. And, I think he's excited. In quotes, he says, we'll do whatever it takes to win football games. If that means changing the structure, we'll change the structure. And, I think he was specifically talking about how the head coach, the GM, and, Russ Ball report through him, and I think he's taken the approach or the lens that, hey, as I take over leadership, I want to maintain our traditions and the way that we do things that have led to success. But, I'm also not married to, the way things have been done for the last 30 years. So he's willing to shake it up. And that's kind of, I've seen some articles out there. Does that put, Matt LaFleur or Brian Gutekunst on the hot seat as a result? I don't know. I mean, I think that's the discussion to be had here. I don't know, like, kind of playing off of that, Rob, like what scenarios either, put Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst in a situation where they get extensions after this season, or maybe have to play out their current contracts after this coming season. I don't know, what are your thoughts about that?
I'm going to keep it extraordinarily simple for this episode. Winning will take care of it all. Winning will get you many, many extensions to the moon and back, right? Kind of duh. But yeah, Matt LaFleur has to continue to be a good coach, work on some of his weaknesses. Continue to develop players, put the right coordinators in the spots and the right positional coaches, right? The culture, build up, continue to have a really good culture. I think that's obviously really important. Really important. And then, Brian Gutekunst, when you get into the specifics, he's got to draft players that come on the field and execute, right? So LVN turns it around this year. That's a big hit for us. If we get Matthew Golden that goes off for us and actually catches the football and has 1,000-yard season, I don't know, comes up as the number one true threat for us, with Savion Williams to come to play. Well, those are the types of things I would think, some of the metrics that maybe policy would be kind of keen in on. And realistically, if he does all of that, if they both do that sort of stuff, you would think that it'd be an easy extension for both of them too. So, and like, go into organizational structure, like I see this all the time, at least within my current organization. Jordan, I'm not sure about you, but I've seen like teams drastically change and be either a lot better or a lot worse, depending on how the structure of that said department is and who they are or are not reporting to. So I think that that's actually a lot more impactful than, you might think. So I'm not sure Mark Murphy's leadership style. He seems like a very kind of laid back person. I'm sure Ed's a completely different person with different philosophies. He leads in different types of ways, but I actually do think that that can make more of an impact on an organization than you would think. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I mean, those are great points, Rob. And it's like, you look at the difference between Goody and Ted Thompson, right? And while a lot remains the same, Goody's certainly been willing to, break the Ted Thompson mold. I mean, Ted Thompson hardly ever went out to sign, big name free agents. When he did, it was like a real big fish, and it was like once in a blue moon. But, Goody's been signing guys to top of the market contracts, really every chance he's gotten. A couple years ago, we were in cap hell, coming out of those COVID years, and a lot of teams were in the same spot. But, him and Russ Ball really tried to figure out the best way to proceed. And there wasn't a lot of money beyond retaining our own players to sign, guys outside of the organization. So, I mean, he's certainly demonstrated a willingness to change. And I think a lot of Packers fans were clamoring for that, So, I mean, you got to look at policy's 3 guiding principles. One, win football games. I think as Packers fans and players, coaches, that's the priority for everybody, right? So, number 2, keep the Packers in Green Bay. We obviously don't want to see the Packers go anywhere, and Mark Murphy did a pretty tremendous job of pretty much cementing that from never happening. I mean, the Packers really never have to leave Green Bay as long as they continue to be financially responsible. The fan base is now clearly going to support them. Waiting list for years and years for tickets. So, I really like his priority 3, strengthen our community. They know that the fan base is in the community. It's in the fans of Wisconsin and, fans all over the world. Yeah, it'll be interesting. And like my last point on this is just, I really think the Matt LaFleur and Goody situations will likely be treated differently. If they go out, they win, 12, 13 games, make a playoff run, pretty good chance that there's an extension for them. And, I think it's kind of funny anyways, because we were talking about this a little bit on the pre-show, and it's just like, what what does a coaching extension really mean? Because half the time these coaches that NFL teams are ready to move on from, I mean, they move on from them after, 2 or 3 years, a year, they don't really mean much at the end of the day because there's not a cap situation that it changes, it's just a change of leadership at that point in time. So we'll see. But
What
good stuff from Ed Policy. Oh, go ahead, Rob.
as you say, wouldn't that be something? Head coaches start counting against the organizational cap. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know what the next NFL bargaining agreement will look like, but I don't think that's going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned, Goody hitting on a couple guys. Actually, I got to go back a second because you said something in the middle there. Are you making a very bold early season prediction, Rob, that Matthew Golden's going to have 1,000 yards his rookie season? Is that what I heard from you?
Oh man, yeah, I did throw that out there, didn't I?
You did.
Yeah, I did. How about that's not my official, very bold prediction, but man, I sure would love if that did come true. So,
Okay, I mean, I wanted to timestamp it if that was an official prediction because, you'd have some flowers coming your way at the end of the season if that was the case.
you know what? Screw it. Screw it. We're doing it. Matthew Golden, 1,000-yard season, baby. Let's go.
All right, we're recording a rare late night episode here instead of our morning episode. Rob must be feeling a little fiery, a little saucy tonight. So,
Let's do it,
all right,
man. If Matthew has 1,000-yard season, man, we are going to be having a really good year.
yeah, we're recording this on June 23rd, so I think you'll probably see this on the 25th. So plenty of time to see how that prediction plays out. But you did mention another thing there on a guy who could hit that could really go a long way in proving that Goody's good at drafting players, especially in the first round. But LVN seems to be Packers media and fans' new public enemy one. I mean, obviously there's a lot of chatter about the cornerback room, but it's also like, well, Jair Alexander saga's over. We got to find something else to kind of doom and gloom about here a little bit. And we've turned our attention towards LVN. So I've seen a lot of trade rumors, packages on the internet that's shipped Lucas Van Ness to a variety of places. One I think that's highly intriguing, potentially really makes sense for both teams. And this was out there on Bleacher Report. I think Mitch Miliani, I think I got that right. Miliani from Bleacher Report predicted or put out there that Packers would send Lucas Van Ness and a 3rd-round pick for Shamar Stewart, the disgruntled 1st-round pick of the Bengals, who they're kind of lowballing and can't get a contract done with at this point in time. What do you think about that trade, Rob? Would you make that trade to send LVN and a 3rd-rounder to get Shamar Stewart?
So normally in my head, I'm like, I got my gut feeling right, and I just shoot it, as I feel it or as I see it. But as Jordan and I were talking on the pre-show, I had to stop and think about that one for a good hard 10 to 15 seconds because that's That's pretty intriguing. A little rich for me for a 3rd-round pick, but if you're currently getting Lucas Van Ness and what he, is, man, I don't know. Probably not. I'd probably stick Lucas Van Ness and hope that he has the Rashawn Gary 3rd-year breakout and that DeMarcus Covington can really unleash him. So, but I want to let you know this one's got a little juice to it. That's a little intriguing to me.
It is. It's so juicy, actually, because, okay, LVS and LVN and Shamar Stewart are like the same player, right? We spent all off season talking about, God, don't draft Shamar Stewart because he's just the next Lucas Van Ness. He's all physical specimen and no production. And I think that's what makes it intriguing to me, because we've seen Lucas Van Ness in the system for 2 years. You brought up a great point that Covington's probably been evaluating him already. So if they're willing to move on from him, there's a good chance that they're not feeling like he's going to make that leap. But now you take a player who's only under control for 3 more seasons in Lucas Van Ness, if we picked up his 5th-year option, and we get a first-round draft pick back with tremendous upside that now we could have control of for 5 years, and maybe he hits earlier. Maybe he gives you everything LVN would have given you this coming year in year one, and you have him under team control for a whole lot longer. So, like, I don't know. This one's really got me thinking that, like, if the Bengals really came calling, I'd listen. I really would. I think I say all of this with, and we got a couple other packages to discuss, but like, I really believe in Lucas Van Ness. I believe in the idea of Lucas Van Ness. I really hope that he explodes this coming year, but we're gonna have to see. Another person, Anthony Palaceros, from Last Word on Sports, had an idea to trade him to the Chargers. They'd be highly interested because they don't have much in the pass rush department. Didn't do too much to address that. There wasn't much to that one, though, because he didn't name any players in his package idea. So I don't know. Obviously, sending him to an AFC team that you don't face frequently would probably be a great idea. So I guess we won't entertain that one too much because there's no names kind of attached to discuss. I kind of came up with a couple ideas of my own, and I guess I'm going to throw these at you, Robin. What do you think? So one is the Giants, or their media, have thrown at the idea of trading Kayvon Thibodeau a couple times. His name's been on like players to watch to be traded this year. They just drafted Abdul Carter. They extended Brian Burns and gave him a big deal. So I guess that's the idea of why he's expendable. But would you trade LVN in a 3rd-round pick to get Kayvon Thibodeau from the Giants?
Yes, I think I would. I think that's a good one. Not sure quite what Kayvon Thibodeau's PFF grade and some of his numbers were, but he's starting to come on a little bit too. I think that one's pretty intriguing to me, so I think I'd pull the trigger on that one.
Well, he's done something that no Packer has done in a while now. Last season he had a little bit of a down year, but 2 seasons ago, I think he had 11.5 sacks. There's not I don't think Rashawn Gary's had 11.5 sacks in a season. In fact, I think like 9.5 is his highest total. I'm shooting off the cuff here, so stat nerds, feel free to correct us in this, but like, if you get that Kayvon Thibodeau to put next to Rashawn Gary, I mean, there's big upside there, right? And you still have him under control for 2 years. So, unlike the next trade I'm going to pitch to you, you're trading a player that you have control of, for 3 years, for a player that you have control of over the next 2 years, because they've already picked up Thibodeau's 5th-year option. So, you just let it, figure it out after that. If you get 2 years of a pass rusher who can really help push you over the edge, especially knowing our corner situation is questionable right now. So the other one I put together was the Packers trade LVN to the Browns for Greg Newsome II and a 5th-round pick. Man, this one obviously would help the Packers' cornerback room right now. Would add immediate depth. Heck, I'd even say that Greg Newsome would have a chance to come in and start. He also had a little bit of a down year last year, which is why I think he's available. But the Packers were highly intrigued with him in the pre-draft process, doing a virtual top 30 visit in 2021, because they were still doing, I don't think they could do in-person visits then, but 9.66 RAS. He has inside-outside versatility, which Hafley seems to be enamored with. Over the last 2 seasons, he's played about half of his snaps on the boundary and inside of the slot. So the downside here is he's only got 1 year left on his contract. So, I think that's why you really have to throw in that 5th-round kicker to get a little bit of extra value back in trading away a player that's got 3 years of team control. But what do you think about that trade, Rob?
Yeah, the only thing I really don't like about this one is that, you got the 1 year of control. So I would see, getting that 5th round pick to sweeten the pot. you'd have to be pretty sure and that what you would have in Egbari, and then I think that this really puts Byron Sorrell in the spotlight, who you got from Texas this year in the fourth round. Would immediately make him come in and have to contribute, but got a lot of obviously control with Byron Sorrell. You add depth, to your cornerback room and Greg Newsome. So yeah, I don't know. This one's this one's a little more difficult for me, and the only reason I think I'd probably say no on this is just the 1 year, um, and really, leaning into Halfley's DB skills and hopefully him getting a mixture of Kalen King, Kamal Haddon, or Micah Robinson for that kind of back end cornerback depth for when injuries do happen to be able to be ready for the season. So this one I'd most likely say no, but I would totally understand and it could be easily justified to go the other way on this too.
Yeah, I mean, going back to something we said earlier, like I think that the Packers coaches and, GM and everything, they're really confident in the groups that they have, and I think they really want to see this edge room and this cornerback room, play out to kind of see if the potential that they have drafted and developed is there. So I don't anticipate any of this happening, but it's just worth a conversation anyways. I think we could be having this conversation next year again if LVN has a very mediocre season and somebody else is willing to bet on his production, and if the Packers do pick up his fifth year option, he would still be a fairly, affordable player at that point. So I don't know. We'll just see how this conversation plays out. My hope is that LVN shows up this year, has like an 8-9 sack season, and we're not even thinking about trading him next year because he's clearly on the rise. So, last point we're going to hit on this show is Romeo Doubs. We haven't talked about him in a while. He seems to be a wide receiver that, has pretty much been talked about just as a trade chip this offseason. But now you got Matt LaFleur going on record saying how great he looks out there, asking the media, like kind of hypothetically, but I don't know if you guys can tell a difference in his physique. He looks like a specimen. A lot of chatter about how he took a lot of the rookies underneath, his wing and was really helpful, really good teammate this offseason. So we obviously have a history with Romeo Doubs right now, but like, do you feel like a big season is loading for Romeo Doubs? Do you think he's found his focus and he's going to really, we're not even going to go down the road of like he's going to be our number one, but do you see improvement from here from him this season? I mean, what are your feelings about these comments around him?
I mean, yeah, it's the coach doing what he's supposed to be doing. He's building up his players. He's saying good things about them, and I'm sure Romeo Dobbs is in good shape. And, he's the one consistent person with really good route running that can catch the football currently on this football team. So, yeah, I hope that he does have a good season and the ball goes his way many different times because most likely, more than not, probably going to catch the football. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot that he learned from whatever the real reasons or stuff that was happening last season, or at least you would think that a person would learn from those experiences because experiences, depending on how big they are, can definitely shape a person's mindset and attitude, their job and the different stuff that they're doing. So I absolutely think that Romeo Dobbs is capable of quite a bit, and I think it would behoove the Packers to get him involved early and often, and then you mix in all the other sort of good stuff behind it. Yeah, I think that he could have a really good season, but yeah, I think Matt LaFleur is just doing the right thing currently with his players, and he's building them up. So that's what a good coach should do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. I'm gonna make you double down on your bet earlier. Would you be more likely to bet on Romeo Dobbs having 1,000 yard season this year or Matthew Golden?
Dude, with the heaters tonight, that's tough. I'll go Matthew Golden just because I like the speed. But hopefully Matthew Golden can catch the football well. I don't think he has a catching issue. Romeo Dobbs is a little bit the security blanket, I'd say, for Jordan Love. So that might be where you would pick Dobbs over Golden.
Love, trust him. We know that much.
He does. Rightfully so.
I'll go the opposite route. I'm going to say that Romeo Doubs would be more likely to have 1,000-yard season this coming year.
I like
With
it.
everything he's got on the line, contract year, obviously the concussion issue, which hopefully is well behind him, and not anything that after a healthy season that we need to discuss anymore. But I don't
Yeah.
know, fans, if you're listening along at this point in time, definitely weigh in. Are you on Team Romeo Dobbs for 1,000-yard season? Are you on Team Matthew Golden for 1,000-yard season? And
Put it down
yes,
below. Are you on Team Rob or Team Jordan?
let's do this too. Leave the other wide receivers out of it. This is a vacuum situation. It's one or the other. If you come and tell me that Jayden Reed is the guy, I'd probably tend to agree with you that I think Jayden Reed is the most likely guy. But let's just conversation piece. It's either going to be Romeo or it's going to be Golden. Who's more likely to have 1,000 yards this upcoming season? So but yeah, thanks as always, Packers fans, and anybody coming to check out our show. Like we said, we got new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. We hope you enjoy this. We love interacting with you in the comments. And, if you want a Sounds Gouda hat and you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do that. So, that's all we got for you, though, Packers fans. So until next time, have a Gouda morning, a Gouda afternoon, and a Gouda night. Go Pack.
Go Pack.
Wanted this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better.